Dun, 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 dun.
Hello, and welcome to Pull to Open, an ongoing quest to watch all of Doctor Who, all of it, in random order. I'm Pete Paschal.
And I'm Chris Taylor, and we're a couple of Doctor Who fans who I now start to believe in retrospect became journalists specifically so that we could write about Doctor Who. And yes, and now we have a podcast, and our drums are never in sync on the podcast. So I do apologize for that, but I kind of think that's our signature now. Just a little bit out
and
of sync.
someday, Chris, someday
We'll get it.
Someday we'll be in the same room doing this, or adjacent rooms.
I'm trying to be just like a microsecond off sync when I do them now, just so that we can line up on the podcast. Anyway, we are a random adventure, and Pete, where have we been on this random adventure?
Yeah, previously on Pull to Open, we were at Attack of the Cybermen, a Colin Baker adventure, his first real proper adventure after the Twin Dilemma. It led off season 22 back in the classic series. I would say we came out a little bit split on that, but we were kind of agreed it was not the greatest of Cybermen adventures. But prior to that, we were at State of Decay in the E-Space trilogy. Yeah, vampires, great vampires, and lots of fun stuff in E-Space. So there was that. And then prior to that, we had a little bit of Capaldi action, which, as everyone knows, is the Randomizer's favorite Doctor. The Randomizer, of course, guiding our journey here throughout the Doctor Who canon on television. We had Robot of Sherwood and Smile back to back.
Right. Two robot-focused stories. The Randomizer has certainly been on a kick of showing us kind of bad robots. And I don't mean bad robots in a so bad they're good kind of way. I mean just
and no, not bad robots in the J.J. Abrams kind
exactly.
of
way. But we've had clockwork robots, which I suppose were like technically great, but functionally bad. In the Girl in the Fireplace.
They're always going haywire, those clockwork robots.
It's just been it's just been a cook's tour of weird bad robots in Doctor Who history, and then sort of weird bad Cybermen last week, and now we come to perhaps the best, most chilling robots-ish,
or
robotic-like travel machines. It is Genesis of the Daleks. And I don't know about you, Pete, but any sort of long-term Doctor Who fan knows that Genesis of the Daleks is to be treated with as much reverence as the Book of Genesis to believers in the Bible. It's just one of those stories that you just sort of feel slight palpitations discussing it because it's so archetypal, so important to the whole thing that we call Doctor Who in so many ways, stylistically, plot-wise, the characters it introduces. But we'll get to all of that. But first,
it's kind of a big deal, in other words.
It's kind of a big deal. I'm a little nervous about TLDWing it, I got to say.
I know. Yeah. This is on you this week. Okay. Well, not yet, Chris. Take a breath. Because we have some other things to talk about before we get to the meat of this. So first of all, guys, reviews. We love reviews. You're listening to this podcast on an app, probably somewhere, whatever that app is, especially if it happens to be an Apple app. We'd love it if you could review the podcast. Even if you are listening on some other app, why not get the Apple app and review it in the Apple store? Because actually getting reviews is one of the key ways, as everyone knows, for podcasts to get more visibility. The more people that are reviewing your podcast, the more ears it can reach. So please go ahead and leave some reviews if you can.
Yes, please.
Doesn't take long.
Please tell the algorithm that we're good. And here we are about to throw our all at Genesis of the Daleks, and watch it again so you don't have to watch it a 16th time. So yeah, please just throw out a one emoji review. Plus 5 stars. I mean, I guess there are emojis too.
Yeah.
But we have a new review with emoji in it, I believe.
Yeah. So when you do leave a review, one of the things we like to do is read them out here on air, and we have a new review, and this is from someone in Australia. The handle is Subtitles2. Great little handle there. I like that. And here's how it reads. It's titled "Splendid Chaps, Both of Them."
Ooh.
5 stars. This podcast is another wonderful addition to the world of Doctor Who fandom podcasts, where pure enjoyment of the show is the focus. If you like DW podcasts that are fans just enjoying themselves discussing an episode, this is one for you. Now, as requested on the show, some guess the episode emojis. Okay, so this is a sort of a sequel to something that someone did a little while back. A really great contribution of putting emojis together to show episode titles, and it's really great.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. Now someone he left these actually, and they we haven't looked at that. I looked at a couple of them, but then I kind of looked away,
Yeah.
and I know you've purposely not looked at
I
them
have.
so that I can basically read them to you.
Yeah.
So I'll read you the ones.
This is a warm-up game before TLDW.
Yeah, there's actually 5 of them, so
Right.
I'll rapid fire them here. So here we go. All right, black circle, flower, cricket bat, a cookie, a cupcake, and a wine glass. So it's 6 emojis in a row.
It's black orchid.
I think that's it, and I think you kind of almost didn't even need the last 4. I hope I didn't get this confused, and there weren't like 2 of them together here, like, but
Yeah.
I think it's Black Orchid with all sort of the cricket and posh stuff
Yeah.
that were associated with that episode.
It's scene setting. I mean, look, your emoji.
Yeah, totally.
Hey, here's what I'm going to say. I'll just interrupt this contest for 1 second to say, when you leave us an emoji review, help fill in the gap of emoji descriptions of episodes. And we can collect them all. We can stick them right there in the codex, which is available in the show notes. And that'll be the official sequence of emojis for that episode, even if we haven't been there. And we will read your emoji review again whenever we get there. So come on, folks. We have 300 stories. We will have 300 stories very shortly to do an emoji form. And there's now like 290 something. So
yeah,
get on it while you can in your review.
Keep
right, what's next?
Those emoji titles coming. Okay, next one. It's 2 emojis in a row. Here they are: stopwatch and an airplane.
Stopwatch and an airplane. Wait, so this is 2 titles or it's 1 title?
No, it's 1 title. 1 title. Stopwatch and airplane.
No flying. No. No flight. Time flight.
Time flight. Ding 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 ding.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely having this thing where like the names of all Doctor Who stories have suddenly fled my head, as normally they sort of take up residence there like 3/5 of the week.
It's tough being in the hot seat.
Yeah,
it's tough being in the hot seat. I get it. Okay, this one you'll get this right away. It's 3 vampires and one's a girl.
The 3 Who rule. It's State of Decay.
Yeah,
was this?
We were just there.
Was this review posted before we did State of Decay?
I think it was probably right around the same time. So
that's hilarious. Wow.
Yeah.
Or perhaps they knew that we were going there from the end of the previous show.
So this one might be a little easy, but I'm going to say it anyway. Here we go. So there are 3 people in a row, 3 faces in a row, and one is dark hair, one is blonde hair, one is red hair, it looks like, which is kind of throwing me off a bit, but they're all wearing lab coats.
Is it the power of 3? Is it...
you know what? That's a good question. Yeah. Maybe it is supposed to be that.
Oh, we don't have the actual answers.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of surmising them as I go. And I think this is the 3 doctors.
Oh,
because I didn't want to tell you they were doctor emojis because I think that gives it away.
Yeah.
So I think it's the 3 doctors.
Okay, that's embarrassing.
All right. So there's this last one.
Who's
I'm
the
not
redhead?
Sure
Who's
of
the
it.
redhead in the 3 doctors?
I think he's just trying to make them look different.
You could do 2 doctors with a redhead. You could do the mad Scottish Patrick Troughton.
Also, if it was the power of 3, I think one of them would have had to been a girl, and they're all male emojis. So.
Yeah.
Or I think they identify as well.
Okay.
All right, expert level.
Uh-oh.
This one I'm not even sure of this one. Okay, so it's a tooth.
Okay.
A glass. It looks like a whiskey glass. And a piano.
Tooth, whiskey glass, piano. Well, the piano takes me straight to Missy being in the vault. Right. That's where I go with that. Tooth, we've already done State of Decay, so we know it's not that.
I don't know this one. Is it? It's not Tooth and Claw, is it?
Tooth and Claw, maybe. Is there a piano in Tooth and
Where's
Claw?
how do you get the claw?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, you know what?
is there a bite? Is there a bite episode?
Who drinks whiskey
Tooth,
in Doctor
tooth.
Who? My good. Oh, is it? It's got to be. Could it be the brandy from Twice Upon a Time? No. God, I'm thinking too deeply
Hmm.
about this one. You know what?
This one's getting at me.
let's leave this
Should we
as
crack open the codex?
let's crack open the codex, sure. But or maybe we could just leave this one as a cliffhanger. You could freeze
Oh
frame on
yeah,
this,
yeah. Let's do it. Yeah,
come back next
uh,
week,
we'll come back.
or possibly the week
Yeah,
after.
we'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. We may have a
Figure it
special
out. Okay,
episode coming up
subtitles
where we
too.
look at the codex, so that might help
Yeah,
us.
yeah. We'll figure it out. Cool. That's good. Wow, we kind of stumped us. I think it's probably going to come to me mid podcast, and it's while we're talking about the Colin bunker or something. I'm like, oh wait, hold on, I've got it. But moving on. Thank you very much. By the way, subtitles too. Those are great. And
Yeah.
again, everybody, please keep the reviews coming.
Yeah,
So
get
we've
your
also
emoji in the
had
database. All right.
yeah, for sure. Oh, reminder also of all the apps we're on. We're now on Amazon Music, Stitcher, and Castbox, where you can heart us. So go ahead and heart all our the episodes on Castbox. More ways to listen, always good. And we had a great week on social media. So TikTok has been growing like crazy, as everyone knows, and I'm always taken aback by one the enthusiasm and which videos go viral, but also just how many people how many followers are getting. So when we talked, we were at about 5,000, and we've already jumped about 400 more. So we're almost at 5,500. We're about 5,400
And we've done
right
that
now. And
exclusively with Old Who, which is not necessarily TikTok's favorite area, as
yeah,
you might imagine. There's definitely a lot more interest in the new Who episodes, but we're actually getting some viral stuff from the Baker era out there, the Baker eras, I should say, which is pretty much all the randomizer goes to in Old Who. But yeah, we
yeah,
got
people love to talk about some of those classic episodes, especially the State of Decay,
well,
which
the
had
advantage
some
of State of Decay is it gave us a lot of thoughts for New Who and of New Who, and that the
mhm.
Great Vampire War, the Vampire War versus the Time Lords, which is something people forget about State of Decay or don't know about if they haven't seen it. That prompted a lot of discussion on TikTok, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I feel like the kids today might be into vampires a little bit
Yeah,
for various
yeah.
reasons. So, the fact
Let's
that Doctor Who took it on a while back, I think it is a little bit intriguing and
RTD
unlocks some
is
possibilities.
so the right person to do a Doctor Who Twilight crossover,
Oh, yes.
or
Oh, that'd be amazing.
faux Twilight.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had
They
a
also love the CVS receipt, right?
oh
The
yeah,
Doctor's CVS receipt that spills out of the TARDIS console in State of Decay. They love
yeah, which was delightfully anachronistic, and it kind of worked. We talked about it then; it was fine. But yeah, it's a great visual where he's just
exactly. It's
reading
an example
from
of
CBS receipts.
how great Classic Who is for TikTok. It's
Yeah.
because there are just some absurd moments taken out of context, and we definitely want to look at that some more.
Totally. So we have our TikTok comment of the week thing we like to do here on the show. So it's from someone named Chris Man with two N's,
Mm.
350. Chris Man 350. And it reads The Vampire Wars would uncover the fact that Rassilon was canonically considered to be the first Time Lord, and it turns out it was the Doctor.
So
Huh.
presumably meaning now that we know that the Doctor is the timeless child, that is the first Time Lord. The timeless child has to be the first Time Lord. Therefore,
Yeah,
Rassilon
I
has to be the Doctor.
guess.
Or is there some other attendant fiction that I don't know about that references Rassilon being the Doctor?
I don't think so. This is kind of the first I've heard of this,
Hmm.
and although I know in the books I haven't read them all, but there's references to what's called the Other, right? So that
Hmm.
the two big figures in Time Lord history
Yeah.
are Rassilon and Omega,
The
and
other.
they were apparently contemporaries,
Hmm.
even though that's not really established till later. But there's also references to the Other, so it's like this, trio, this triumvirate, whatever the right word
Hmm.
is, and the other, there's a lot of there's never actually said in the books, but there's a lot of allusion made to him being the Doctor.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
so
Chrisman 350 is certainly right about one thing, which is that RTD going back to the Great Vampire Wars, and would afford a lot of opportunity to look at early early Time Lord society and perhaps sort of flesh out that whole timeless child a little bit more, introduce a little bit more of a mystery box element to it, and really integrate it into the wider story, because I think that's a problem a lot of people have with Timeless Child right now, is it just doesn't feel integrated. It kind of feels a little bit slapped on. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get there.
Yeah, totally. The idea of the Doctor being Rassilon is interesting. I need some convincing to like that, because I do feel like it's might be one retcon too far,
Yeah,
because we've obviously seen them interact. But again, it kind of works if you think about the mechanics of like erasing his
yeah.
memory and all that stuff.
Well,
So
canonically, we still have versions of the Doctor that are out there who we haven't accounted for, right? The
mhm,
Valiard, the Randomizer's taken us to Trial of Time Lord, so we've seen the Valiard recently. There's the Watcher from
right,
Legopolis. Like, there
the
are
curator.
the Curator. That we still. It's entirely possible that you could create a new Doctor Who canon in which the Doctor sort of has branch points
Hmm.
where they become different people.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that would be a very interesting way to deal with the loose bits of canon, and just hell, go hell for leather on Timeless Child thing. Just make the Doctor so completely timeless that they can be multiple people at once.
It's
I like that
almost like
idea.
the meme, the meme of I think it's Charlie Day pointing at a board full of uh,
Yeah,
photos
yeah,
and
the
newspaper
conspiracy theory.
clippings, and like,
Yeah,
here's the it's the Doctor family tree, but it's all conspiracy.
yeah. Let me just
Love it
start
though. I
smoking
mean,
a mad cigarette. Yeah,
yeah, even if this specific comment just got my imagination going, even though if I think it might be a little too on the nose, it's also like, well, let's talk about that old era and fill in some blanks. I love. We definitely want to see that.
yeah,
So awesome.
definitely. Great thing about a Doctor Who discussion, it just spurs your head canon, and then we're just in our happy place. So we also had a lot of love for Lala Ward in
Yeah.
State of Decay, and
Yeah, and I wanted to shout out another comment. Just because it's kind of just fun to hear about this. So a commenter with the handle PJ Bagnall. PJ Bagnall sounds like almost a real name there. Um,
people leaving their real names now on TikTok. What the hell?
I don't, well, maybe it's because um, he might be not quite the demographic of TikTok that is normal, because the comment reads as follows: I used to be one of Lala's gardeners when I worked in my last company. The lads I worked with had no idea they were in the presence of Doctor Who royalty. And that's just a cool
I love
story.
it.
I just, I wanted to just highlight it, because it's like, I like the 6 degrees of separation aspect. I also love the reverence for Lala Ward, who, as we all know, is awesome and fantastic. And as you mentioned in the State of Decay podcast, she is royalty, right?
Yeah,
Or at least it's pretty close to it.
she's titled. She is
Mhm.
Lady Sarah Ward. Um, and I forget if it was a Viscount was her dad, or whatever it was.
Viscount Banger.
But that's it, Viscount Banger, the greatest DJ name.
I will never forget that name.
Viscount
It's a great name.
Banger on the decks, on the ones and twos. What is intriguing about this comment is it's kind of a mystery box in itself, because PJ Bagnall is not telling us how he reacted in the presence of Doctor
Mm,
Who royalty. I mean, I hope that he bowed and scraped to her, not for reasons of outdated aristocratic class systems, but for reasons of her being Romana.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
I would just, if it were me, I'd just walk past, doff my cap, and go, Lady Romana.
Mm.
Yeah.
I would have been probably shameless and asked for a selfie. So he probably was very respectful. He's on a job. I mean, you're a pro. I think he probably did that thing. But really, how often do you get the chance to get a selfie with
Right.
Romana?
You can have a selfie if you tug your forelock at the same time, you oik. All right.
Anyway,
So, what else do we have to talk about? YouTube
well,
is
just a quick
happening.
yeah, quick reminder, we're on YouTube. We've got the season 1 of the podcast out there, and we're uploading every week. We'll eventually get season 2 up there, so watch for that. And we're always thinking about other videos we could do. We might do that at some point, so feel free to leave some comments there, or just comments anywhere really, about if you'd like to see some videos from us that aren't just the podcast. Let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. Now, we are recording this on April the 2nd, and we've just seen news that on April the 17th, we will be getting our 300th, according to the Pull to Open Codex Doctor Who story, Legend of the Sea
Mm.
Devils, with Sea Devils on a pirate flag. How did that grab you, Pete?
It's grabby.
It's pretty grabby.
Um, yeah, I mean,
Three
to
words:
talk a
Sea
few
Devil
seconds
pirates.
about it. Yeah, I mean, I like the Sea Devils, I like the Silurians. It is kind of like, how far down the classic monster list are we now? What do we have to go? Like, I think after the Sea Devils, maybe it'll be the Pteroleptals or something like it.
Wow, deep
So, I
cut.
mean, I'm fine. I'm fine bringing back the Sea Devils. The Silurians and the Sea Devils have a storied history. They're always fun to see. There's always that uh, moral dilemma that comes in of like, well, these guys used to own the house, and we kind of squatted, and they kind of have a point of we kind of took their house. So,
Yeah.
like so there's always a little bit of ambiguity there, which I really like about it. I want not sure if the last time we did pirates, it didn't work out so well, which was the Matt Smith episode. Oh God, I don't remember the title, but it was
Curse of the
with Damien
Black
Roy.
Spot or something.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So another crack at the pirates, I think, is fine. Hopefully, this is the Pirates of the Caribbean to the Curse of the Black Spots, Cutthroat Island, and just fixes pirates forever for Doctor Who. So I
Yeah,
hope.
yeah. We've not really. You're right. We've not really had a great Doctor Who piracy episode, and it is. It struck me on our random adventure with Attack of the Cybermen, including the Cryons, the indigenous race of Telos, and of
Mm.
course we're going to be talking about the indigenous races of Skaro shortly. Um, Doctor Who really does do a lot of that, and it's sort of you could write a whole paper on its role in Britain's decolonization, mental decolonization of the 20th century, and so yeah, let's really get into that. Let's use the Sea Devils, and it does sound like
Mhm.
something that Chris Chibnall would want to do as well. Um, to comment as the best science fiction does on things in the real world that can't really otherwise be commented on without being called politics. Um,
I thought it was Chris Chibnall appropriate because it'll be all wet.
ho, ho,
Uh,
ho!
Doom Tish.
Wow, we'll be here all week, folks. Um,
We will be,
but
but we'll
yeah,
be here all week discussing the thing we really came to discuss, Chris.
yep.
It's
Oh
time to
boy.
stop stalling.
Oh god. Here we go. Genesis of the
We're
Daleks.
back. We're here to talk about Genesis of the Daleks. But just to close the loop on that, by the time the next podcast rolls around, it'll have broadcast, and that'll be fun to talk about. Though we might not have seen it yet, so enjoy and your Sea Devils. Okay, Genesis of the Daleks. We're
Yes.
here to do this. We're here to do this thing called TLDW. Too long, Doctor Who. Too long didn't watch.
Mm-hmm.
Where we summarize the plot of Doctor Who episodes in record time. So for the classic series, we allocate 30 seconds for every 25-minute episode. So Genesis of the Daleks is on the longer side. It's
It
got
is.
6. So you get a full 3 minutes, sir.
I feel confident
Summarize things.
about my ability to get all the story in. What I don't feel confident about is remembering all of the back and forth between the domes and the wasteland, and there's a lot of geographical moving in Genesis of the Daleks. So I
There's a lot
think
of corridors.
I'm just going to give you a heads up. I'm going to start this story, or near the start of TLDW, there will be a geographical. I'll just talk about things geographically rather than chronologically.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. You got
Yep.
a plan. I like
Yep.
this. All
Yep.
right, you've been
Exactly.
thinking about it. This is going to be like one of those Tolkien novels where you
Yeah.
have the map at the beginning.
I mean, this
This
is
is
going to
awesome.
be, we're doing all of these TLDWs as TikToks, right? So they will exist on the permanent record as the summary on TikTok of a particular classic episode. So,
The definitive pull to open summary of Genesis of the Daleks
God.
begins right now. Go.
All right. So on the planet Skaro, the Doctor, Harry, and Sarah arrive and are told by a Time Lord that they've been brought there, they've been taken out of the transmat after Ark in Space and that stuff. And they've been told by the Time Lord that, you've got to stop the development of the Daleks. It's happening on Skaro right now, and here you are. And here is Skaro. So it's like a vast wasteland with 2 domes in it. There's the Thal Dome, and there's the Khaled Dome. And next to the Khaled Dome, a couple of miles away, there's a bunker where Davros and a bunch of scientists are developing the early travel machine Mark IIIs, which are later called the Daleks. Now, Dr. Harry and Sarah get knocked out. Two of them get taken into the Kala Dome. Sarah ends up with the Mutos in the wasteland, goes to the Thal Dome. She ends up working on a rocket that the Thals are using to destroy the Kala Dome. Meanwhile, in the bunker, Davros's scientists are getting a little bit disturbed by what he's doing with these Daleks and his plans for them, and they're right to be disturbed because Davros is actually a traitor, and he and his commander Nida, his loyal lieutenant, they go over to the Thal Dome and they say, "Hey, you're about to launch a rocket at the Kala Dome. Here's how you destroy the Kala Dome." They give them secret formulas, and so the Thals actually launch this rocket. So Davros has basically engineered the genocide of his own people. The Thals think they're great. They think they've won the war. 1,000 years of war is over. By the way, the two races have been at war for 1,000 years, and the Thals are massacred by the Daleks, by 20 Daleks that Davros has sent into the Thal Dome. Meanwhile, the Doctor and Harry are also got there into the Thal Dome after having somehow talked to the Kala leadership and warned them of the development of the Daleks. Now, over in the Thal Dome, they go to where Sarah is loading up the rocket and dying of like radiation poisoning and some other kind of poisoning, and because the rocket's it's like all radioactive and it's not safe. And they try to rescue Sarah, but the Doctor gets electrocuted on the rocket, but he gets out of that. Sarah, meanwhile, has tried to escape to the top of the dome, falling a great path, and then she is put back in the work detail, and the Doctor and Harry free her. But then later on, Doctor thinks that Harry and Sarah are back in the Kala Dome when it gets blown up, but they're not. They all meet up in the wasteland again, and they get into the bunker, and they find Davros, who has been, the concerned scientists and the military have all banded together, and they've arrested Davros, but he's like, no, give me a hearing. And he's like, I'll destroy the Daleks, but let's have an actual vote. They have a vote. Turns out it's a trap. Davros kills all the scientists with the Daleks, and then the Daleks turn around on Davros, and meanwhile the Doctor escapes with the record.
And time.
Oh man, I didn't get to the torture of the Doctor.
Sorry, finish it up.
Yeah, so the Doctor actually is tortured by Davros. Harry and Sarah are tortured by Davros. The Doctor reveals the dates and times and the ways that all the Daleks are defeated in the future, and also tries to blow up the Dalek embryos, which have been engineered without any conscience, which is what all the scientists were worried about. And but he just basically manages to entomb the Daleks for 1,000 years. So he hasn't killed them, but he thinks that they might have done some good, and he wonders if he has the right to do anything more.
3:45.
Oh my God! See?
All right, you finished the race.
There was so much back and forth. Even
I could tell you were getting into trouble when you got into the rocket stuff with Sarah.
Yeah.
You were kind of like on episode 2 and 3 when you're getting toward the end of your allotted time, and it was like, uh-oh.
I really should have used the 30-second markers that we give, because
it was a rabbit hole. It's like you said when I was doing Attack of the Cybermen. You could easily go down a rabbit hole on some of these plots, and you just suddenly like, I'm doing way too much on this thread when I forgot about the main thread.
I was overconfident because it feels like once you get started, it feels like a lot of the episodes are filler. In terms of just describing the actual plot. I didn't even get to the clams.
Right? The clams.
Right. Deliberately did not mention the giant clams.
It's always a question of what you leave out in these TLDWs, and I think not mentioning the clouds is completely it's totally okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of sort of side plots to keep it going. The thing is, like, all that stuff about Genesis, it doesn't feel that long. Like, it is long. It feels long, like an older Doctor Who episode, but it is like these all these side plots do have a point, right? Like, I think the thing with the Thals and Sarah's a whole escape plan and all of that, one, it sort of shows a certain capability on Liz Slade, and we can get into that in her character, but it's also shows how cruel the Thals are as well. Like, no one's a hero here. Like, there's no, like, back in the old days of the Daleks in the original Dalek episode, the Thals are portrayed as the pacifists. I mean, they're not flawless, but they're the good guys
Right.
who are helping the Doctor and their friends. And here, both races have been turned bitter and basically evil because they've been in 1,000 years of war. And the Thals are very cruel and mean and all equally bent on genocide.
Right.
So it's a rough time here on Skaro.
It really is. It's the most wonderfully morally ambiguous situation that possibly that the Doctor has ever been in. Obviously, I've watched Genesis of the Daleks multiple times, but I'd not watched it in years, and was surprised upon returning to it about three things. First of all, the giant clams. Secondly, the fact that it was 6 episodes, and somehow I'd remembered it as 4 episodes. It is a lot longer than perhaps than it should be. Like, to be a really tight, perfect, 100% no notes classic episode, you could edit this down to 4, right?
Oh yeah,
and it would be perfect. Indeed, there was an edited version broadcast on the BBC. But yes, and then I'm now forgetting the third reason that I was. What were we just talking about? Yeah.
Well, the back and forth, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of stuff in the, they go to switch cities all the time. Can we talk? What do you want to talk about the map first of all?
Okay, just to close the loop on that. The third thing, the third reaction, I remember it now. I was sort of just mad at the rest of Doctor Who for not being this good. You know what I mean? Like, this came in 1975, and at that point you have the template for how to do Doctor Who that is so good that it is legit sort of adult, chilling to adults on a moralistic level, with lots of not just moralizing, but knotty moral dilemmas where, like, who's the good guys here? What is anyone even doing? Even the Doctor and Sarah and Harry, they're interfering in history, and like, they come up with a morally ambiguous ending. So it's so knotty and thorny, and yet it still works for a kid. It still works for kids watching this, and you get the scares and the Daleks and all of that. So yes, back to the map.
Yeah. Well, the map. I mean, one of the things that is an easy thing to poke at this episode that people sometimes do. I don't think that it's a really that valid a criticism. Is that how could you possibly have a war between two civilizations who are essentially a stone's throw from each other?
Yeah.
And it's pretty, like, I mean, there's no vehicles shown, so it seems like you could walk from one dome to the other inside of a day. And the how could that possibly be? And they're talking about nuking each other, like, essentially, like, we don't know what dystronic explosive is, but it sounds like it's radioactive,
pretty much.
And why would you even do that? Like, it would be like Manhattan nuking Brooklyn. I don't think that's going to work out that well for Manhattan. But again, like, I'm not bringing this up as the criticism, because that's the sort of the weak criticism. I'm more like, well, you kind of have to go with it, and as sort of on a metaphorical level, it really works. Works, honestly, even during the show, you're not even thinking this. The criticism, these are all come afterward.
That is, and we've talked about this many times. Like, the job of a Doctor Who story is not to not have outlandish, weird stuff with bizarre dream logic and plot holes. The job of a Doctor Who episode is to be so good that it distracts you from all of these things.
Exactly.
And this, I mean, to accept this story at all, like, we've talked a lot about the jumping off point where you just have, like, okay, I have to accept this. And with Genesis of the Daleks, it really just comes in the first 5 minutes. Like, you have to accept that they in some sort of dream logic-y way, a little bit like State of Decay, right? The civilization is decaying to the point where they're basically using, bows and arrows and Sherman tanks at the same time. Which is something that we'll return to in the Magician's Apprentice, right? We can talk about that, the relation of that to Genesis of the Daleks a lot. But yeah, so the dream logic is in that. It's in the Time Lord just sort of suddenly showing up and disappearing, which is the first time that we've seen a Time Lord in the Doctor's chronology, or just like randomly popping up like that, since Terror of the Autons, which we've been to.
Right.
I mean, obviously Time Lords are in 3 Doctors. Like, there are other mentions of them here and there, but this is the first time Time Lord has just popped out to sort of give the Doctor his quest.
Yeah, presumably the CIA, which we talked about a little bit in
And that
The
has
Deadly
been
Assassin.
debated in fan circles whether this is a celestial intervention agency operation or whether it's some other kind of black ops or whether it's like official Time Lord, and what the hell is up with that dude's collar and why does he look like he's come out of the movie The Seventh Seal? Because that was the inspiration.
Yeah, it looks like really bad cosplay, I have to say, that Time Lord. But you kind of see the beginnings of their shoulder, like the hats that we see later in Deadly Assassin, which are
Yes.
amazing. So, you kind of take it in that way. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of like, in terms of the retcon that Deadly Assassin was trying to do, I think we're supposed to take this to be the CIA, but then there's kind of the retcon on top of the retcon, which is that this is the beginning of the Time War, which
Yeah.
might be a
RTD
little
said
make it
that.
a little more official, right?
Yeah.
Like, which and so I love that. I think
Oh,
everyone sort of bought into that idea. I think
yes.
that's pretty much canon now, that this is the beginning of the Time War.
Yeah. The first
And
shot.
we
Why? Why? You know what? I want to say
uh,
up front, since we love to talk about ideas for RTD, for the 60th anniversary season. I not only would love to see this. Genesis of the Daleks is so important and so good and so quintessential Doctor Who. I would love to see them do to this what Deep Space Nine did with the Trouble with Tribbles, right?
oh yeah. Yeah, we
That
go back into the
you go
episode.
back into the
Yeah.
episode, you work around the episode. That
Hmm.
Skaro in this situation, it would be a perfect place to have another Doctor just sort of lurking around corners,
Yeah.
right? Because there are so
Wow.
many corners. You could fill in gaps, and you could look at how this ties into the Time War and what was it in the background that actually caused the Time Lords to make this disastrous decision to try to wipe out the Daleks, which
Yeah.
results in their own disappearance or doom or
Yeah. Yeah.
de-emphasis.
So I guess they give the Doctor the three options, which is one, avert their creation;
Mm.
two, find change their development so they develop into something less aggressive; or three, find a weakness
And four,
in
bring us a
them.
shrubbery. Um,
And we might as well kind of start at the end. I mean, like,
mm,
he kind of fails on all counts, and they even say that at the end. Like, Sarah's like, we failed, and he kind of has his philosophical thought, which is a good one, sort of an expansion of what he said earlier about races uniting against the Daleks because of
yeah.
their evil. So I guess that's a point of view. But what did this is a matter of a lot of debate, and I don't mean to go full nerd right away, but
Do
we're
it.
talking about it. So,
We
but it
went
is
full
like,
nerd minutes ago.
what happens to the timeline here? And that's been debated a lot, because it's like, well, did the previous Dalek stories even happen now? Like, he
Yeah.
blows up the bunker, and he blows up the incubator room, and he says he hasn't killed them, but their development's been basically put back 1,000 years. Okay, so what does that mean? In
Yeah,
terms of like
exactly.
the timeline, and like, it seems like all the Dalek stories still happened, but we don't have to buy into that. We could say they happened, didn't happen, or just happened differently. Um,
Well, the whole chronology is kind of a mess, right? Because isn't it in the original serial The Daleks from 63, 64, what they called, they were called Dals, not Khaleds. Is that
yeah,
right?
it's very briefly mentioned once or twice that the Daleks evolved from the dolls, who were apparently more human-like, I think, and they were like short humans.
I mean, honestly, I don't
I
fault them
could be
for
confusing
changing their
numbers.
names because people would just keep confusing them with Thals all the time.
Well,
You know?
the big contradictory thing, though, is that in that episode, they say that the war lasted a day
Ah.
instead of 1,000 years.
Eh,
So it's either two different wars, or they say maybe it's like, this explains a little bit why it's a barren wasteland except for two domes. Like, the planet was wiped out in a day, but the war lasted 1,000 years.
yeah, yeah. If you've got that kind of dome technology, you can keep it going for a lot longer. So I like that. But
Yeah.
yeah, Doctor Who is loosey goosey with its canon in a way that can infuriate outsiders once they get into this, because I feel like the other sci-fi epics are so firm on their canon. But here, what we're seeing is like, oh, we're just like going to invent a new
Well,
backstory for the Daleks.
the funny thing is, though, usually that happens in Doctor Who because the production team changes
Yeah.
and they don't really pay close attention to what they did before. In this case, Terry Nation himself kept reinventing the Daleks' origins on his
Yes.
own, and you would think he, among everyone, should know, should have in his head what this is, because he wrote the Daleks, obviously, which says one thing. He wrote the tie-in comic in the '60s,
Yep.
which showed their creator was someone named Yarveline or whatever.
Yeah.
But he
And
also wrote like a one-off special a couple of years previous to this story,
yes,
which was called "We Are
we
the
are the
Daleks," and
Daleks.
it said the Daleks were actually like mutated from humans
Dun
themselves.
dun
I guess.
dun.
Okay,
Love
fair
it when you
enough.
give away the spoiler in the title. Yeah, Nation was sort of like I love how he was just so kind of haphazard about everything, and also his balls in basically resubmitting the origin story of Genesis of the Daleks is that he basically resubmitted the same script that he had done in '73 and '74. Planet of the Daleks and was it Death to the Daleks? I forget.
Right.
My I
Death of the Daleks was the last Pertwee one. Yeah, that was the
yeah.
one previous to this. Yes,
Yeah, and then it was Planet before that, and there's
Planet before that.
a lot of criticism that they're sort of basically the same story, and rewrite
Eh,
it a little bit. And apparently, he did this a third time. He basically just resubmitted the same script, and Barry Letts was like, "No, dude, look, you keep giving us the same story. How about you go back and give us a genesis of the Daleks?" Uh,
yeah,
brilliant idea, and we live in a media world now where prequels are sort of like synonymous with cash grabs and kind of
right.
shittier
Yeah.
version of the original story. This is a case where the prequel became the preeminent story.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I'm so glad they made him work for it this time, because
Yeah,
obviously he came out gold, and not only does this version of the Daleks' origins basically the definitive one, and everything else has to contort around it, but he also gave us Davros.
yes.
And Davros,
Whew.
to me,
Mm,
and to I think a lot of Doctor Who fans, is the ultimate Doctor Who villain. He is so good. Like, I mean, I put him even up above the Master, even though I like
yeah,
the Master, and whether it's him or her, I think they're both, the performances are great, and there's a lot of good back and forth with the Doctor that they've made of. But Davros is so fleshed out here as like, he's a nut, but he is at least at this point in his evolution, he's just kind of a controlled nut, and he's so dangerous and so understandable
yeah,
on this sort of crazy level. He really kind of reminds me of Thanos now, post Marvel. There's madness, but there's a logic to the madness
yeah.
that is terrifying, because you just know they're going to be unrelenting in pursuit of this insane goal.
Yeah, and he has that sort of same
Very
sense of
chilling.
scale,
Yes,
as you can
yes,
see. And one of the most terrifying moments is where the Doctor uh, posits a thought experiment of like, what if you had a virus in that lab that would destroy all forms of life? Would you release it? And Davros actually seriously considers it. He's like,
yeah,
having a virus being the only form of life in the universe, interesting, and knowing that I had the power to release it. And you're like, wow, this really gets at the heart of the megalomaniacal villain more than anything else. And
yeah.
it's particularly terrifying now. Regular Pull to Open listeners know that I like to associate Doctor Who with all sorts of modern political situations. It really wasn't this hard in this case. And it's sort of like, one of the great things about watching stories like this over the years is you sort of see it differently. So when I was a kid, I was
Mhm.
into history, and I looked at Davros, and I was like, well, it's I heard that it was based on Joseph Mengele, like it kind of had that sort of sense of creepy experimental Nazi vibes, right? Or he's like a bit Hitler, or he's Himmler, or he's Goebbels, like he's a creature of the past. And this
Mhm.
time I watch it, and Davros was more scary because
Yeah.
Davros reminded me of Trump. He reminded me of Putin. He is a megalomaniacal leader who is just sort of casually a traitor, helps him get in his
Yeah.
own way, casually genocidal about starting a war or ending a war, killing his own people, not really caring about that, but also that sense of, the power of one old man, like just sort of wanting to, you know, wave his nukes in the world's face. It
Yeah.
was, I was sitting on the couch watching this with my wife and mentioned the Putin connection. She just looked at me and said, too soon. It
Yeah, I mean,
was,
I hear everything you're saying, and I agree with that. It is almost too, not real, but I guess you feel it, like this
mm,
idea that this person's so not, I mean, crazy, but I mean, they're more, you get it. Like, it's all about their power,
Mm.
like when he betrays his own people is such a moment. And you 100% believe it.
Yes.
Like, yes, because that's what Davros is about. He's not about saving or building or peace. He's about his power and his pursuit of that power through the Daleks. That's the only thing he cares about.
Mm. And it's
And he'll kill everyone,
yeah.
everything to get that.
It's actually an
And
indictment of
that's,
patriotism, right? Because it's like people just sort of assume that Davros is a patriot because he's working so magnanimously in the cause of the Khalids, but actually he's not a patriot. He's just out for Davros. He's not out for
yeah,
his own people. But the most chilling moment for me was when he uses the levers of democracy against democracy,
yeah,
which
yes,
really struck home. Holy
yeah.
cow! He's like
It's
basically
diabolical,
he's so
man. Like,
diabolical. But
yeah,
it's like I after that whole scene where he basically tells the scientists and the elite, they're called, just an interesting choice of words. To let's hey, sure, I'll destroy the Daleks, but just give me time to talk through this in front of everyone. We'll make it a vote. We'll make it all nice and democratic. Isn't that what you want? And the rebels are kind of backed into a corner. He's like, oh yeah, I guess we do. And then he uses that to trap them and kill them with the Daleks. They don't know that, but he's still like, the vote is important. It's like, I want to see
yeah,
who's on my side, man.
exactly.
And so he's
Yeah, it's not just a
misusing.
charade.
He is
Yeah,
misusing democracy and avowedly doing so. Like he
hmm,
turns to Nida and says, see these fools with their weakness and their democracy. I'm going to
yeah.
use it against them. And here in 2022, still dealing with the aftermath of January the 6th and certain undemocratic elements in the world, that really struck home. And that was the point which I turned to my wife and I said, see, this is why you don't let fascists have access to democracy, because this is
So
what they do. This is how Mussolini did it. This is how Hitler did it. You pervert the instrument of democracy.
yeah, yeah. I gotta say, like, so much great dialogues. All the little speeches are very good and
Mm-hmm.
very relevant to the story and the world. Like that little one, it's honestly not even the best speech of the whole thing, where he talks about democracy, freedom, fairness, and it's this, it's a creed for the magnamaniacal leader. But it's so good. It's so dead on. I mean, Terry Nation was man, he was on fire
Mm.
when he wrote this thing. I will say though, you've keyed in on the one plot hole that I think hurts because I see it every time. And even I watched it with my family, and Jack, my son, saw it too. It's like, how come no one's thinking of the Daleks? Like, how come it doesn't occur to anyone that Davros can just summon the Daleks to kill everybody? Like,
Yep.
it's really weird that no one thinks that, or they think they can just turn them off, which seems to be what, even like, the only person who points it out at one point is Sarah, and this is when they're sort of trapped in Davros's office or whatever, and it's like, she's like, well, wait a minute, what about the Daleks that are already operational? And the doctor just kind of, no, I'm sure Garmin will dismantle them, and it's like, oh, well, can you spell out how that's
Yeah.
going to happen? Because I'm pretty sure Davros is going to not let that happen, and
It's
it's going to turn out bad. And oh, look what happened.
it's kind of what I was talking about with the chilling dream logic of this story, because in dreams, like, big part of dreams is often this sense that, like, a threat is not being treated as a threat. Like, I've
Yeah,
spent a lot of dreams shouting at people going, don't you see that giant scary monster that's approaching us? And everyone's like, it's fine. Right, that's a common dream logic thing, right?
yeah,
And that's the chills of Genesis of the Daleks, is there are only ever 3 Daleks on screen at one time.
right.
But you
But at
feel,
the end, they have a few props, but only
yeah,
3 operational ones. Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
it's kind of a masterclass in how to use them sparingly and in the background, and to use them to the point which is also used in Dalek, right, in the new series, and reintroducing them,
right.
of like, it's super scary when someone is around a Dalek and they don't know what a Dalek can do,
Hmm,
because you are
yeah.
just in that dream logic moment of like wanting to scream at them, get away from that thing.
Yeah, you could kind of believe in that sense, sort of the elite and the people in the bunker
Mhm.
wouldn't occur to them because they actually haven't even really seen the Daleks much. They've seen them kind of move around, like they haven't really seen them as a war machine. Like Davros has just deployed them, and there's no footage from the
Yeah,
whole city, right? Like, I mean, it's like, okay, they're off doing something. Maybe they're having tea. Who knows?
no one is
And
watching the
so,
news. No tea,
yeah, well,
Harry.
but it's a little unforgivable that the doctor doesn't, though, and I
Yeah.
guess you kind of, again, he's locked away at some point, and is sort of figuring things out, but he kind of gets a little dumb for a second. So again, it's the one plot hole in my mind that there's a bunch of plot holes in every Doctor Who story, but it's the one that actually every time I watch it, it occurs to me. And again, it's the first time my son saw it, and he pointed it out.
Indeed.
So,
Well, speaking of
said,
the Nazi parallels, we should sort of point out that it was a bit too parallel. I mean, at one point, Nyder is sort of famously wearing this Iron Cross, and they actually take it off because they shot. He's wearing an Iron Cross in the early episodes, and they're like, "Oh, we went a little bit too Nazi. Don't go quite that Nazi." But even so, my wife would often turn to me during the episode and kind of reference the Mitchell and Webb sketch. Do you know this one? Are we the baddies?
No, I don't.
It's often used as a GIF on Twitter, right? It's David Mitchell turning to his colleagues, and they're in SS uniforms in the bunker. He's like, "Hans, I've just been looking at the Death's Head skull in our uniforms. Hans, are we the baddies?" It's so freaking obvious that you're the better. Like, who else would put a Death's Head skull on their uniform?
It's kind of like when there was a recent reboot of She-Ra. I don't know if you know that continuity at all, but it keeps the name of this territory like the Fright Zone. And like what the story is that this person who works as a military advisor or a military captain for this person who runs the Fright Zone called Hordak. She doesn't know that she's a bad person, even though she works for someone named Hordak, who has a skull for a face, and their territory is called the Fright Zone.
Yeah,
it's a little like wait.
Don't judge on names and appearances, Pete. Come on.
Anyway, sorry. I just that always.
I love it.
Are we the baddies?
I love it. Well, speaking of references to other literature, have you ever heard of a comic series called Dan Dare, Pilot of the Future?
I have heard of it.
Dan Dare is from the 50s in Britain, and the evil character in that was the Mekon. And he was a guy with a large bulbous green head who was in a floating chair. And the Mekon is very Davrosian. He precedes Davros by about 20 years. It was certainly a character that Philip Hinchcliffe, the producer, was aware of. And it's been discussion of this, and certainly Michael Wisher, when he was playing Davros, had the Mekon in his head as someone he was emulating. So it may not have been a Terry Nation reference.
Well, let's talk about that choice. I love the choice of Davros is a cripple. Yeah. Davros, he is not physically, formidable at all. Yeah. Like, he's got a Dalek base, which makes it scary, and he looks scary. But the Doctor himself, wins in an arm wrestle pretty quickly there in episode 5, I think it is, when he's threatening Davros. Like, it is, and I actually really like that on a number of levels. Obviously, it's because his mind is the most frightening thing, and his diabolical drive and ingenuity. But I like that they flip it. Like, it is like he's so physically weak. Once the Doctor's alone with him, he can win. He almost does. Like just really quickly. So,
and again, sort of part of the chilling dream logic here, and part of its applicability to the real world, is that this maniac, this maniacal leaguer, is so easy to overcome. He's so frail. One stiff wind would blow him over, and yet he's still sort of like the rebels against him are still. You get the sense that they think of him as invulnerable, and you can't take him down.
Terrified of him too.
Terrified of him.
Ronson early on when he crosses Davros, just to save the Doctor and Harry, like you could tell he's like, oh, I'm in it now. Like, holy cow! And Davros even threatens that he's going to punish him later.
Doctor and Harry. That's it's weird because. I mean, they even when they've arrested him, they're like they preface their speech to him with like, "No one doubts your contributions to science over the years." So you had this wonderful backstory that's never even really mentioned, that he's just like this super sciencey guy that people kind of look up to, Elon Musk, who kind of turns evil. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, he does answer to the civilian authorities at one point, which is
in theory.
Yeah, in theory,
Mm.
and he kind of like, well, they force him to shut
And
down,
it's
and
like,
that's
yeah.
obviously what prompts him to destroy his entire race.
And it's like, yeah, sure,
Um,
12 hours, fine, no worries, chill,
yes, he
man.
just has that fake speech, with the silver tongue. And he's, oh yeah, I'm
Yeah.
all good, I'm all good. Oh, no problem, I'll
It's all
totally
fine,
cooperate.
dude. It's very Uriah Heep. It's very sort of that guy in the office who you just should not trust 1 inch, because he's
Yeah.
super obsequious to the boss. Um, yeah, and it's so chilling. Well, first of all, I will say, to quote the Magician's Apprentice, I'm having his chair. It is. I've always loved Davros's chair, and I've always loved how it works in Genesis of the Daleks, because it makes you think of the Daleks
Yeah,
right from,
totally.
in every scene that Davros is in without the Daleks, which turns out to be most of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes up for that because it's called Genesis of the Daleks, but the Daleks are barely in it.
Yeah.
Like they're kind of here and there, but
The
only
episode
mostly
one
in the end.
cliffhanger, a few scenes here and there, the first chronological Dalek extermination, but yeah, not really in it as much as you might remember. But Davros is, and just his chair keeps the chilling image of the Daleks on your mind. And it's so
One
chilling.
interesting thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, it's so chilling that I have to remember. So that, how when you give a speech and you're supposed to think of the audience naked or on the toilet or whatever to kind of just make it less scary. I think the way to make Davros less scary is to know that, first of all, Michael Wisher was playing him in a kilt and knee pads, which just like, because
Okay.
he needed the maneuverability down there, and I guess his
Yeah, it's
knees
comfy.
kept bumping that chair. So like that's an image I can't get out of my head now. Davros in a kilt and knee pads.
Well, the
Um,
one I can't get out of my head is that he did rehearsals with a bag on his head.
yeah, so people would
So
react
I
to the voice.
yeah, I guess because you wouldn't do the mask and the makeup because I mean that
You know,
obviously takes a lot of time and effort.
Speaking of that mask and makeup, like this was the same one that was reused in '79 for Destiny of the Daleks, right?
I believe so. It definitely
And then
looks the
in
same.
the
Yeah.
'80s, it's a different Davros mask, and it gets
Mhm.
substantially less scary. Would you share that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different Davroses. I mean, they are the same character, but
Mm.
there's a very conscious sort of break, I think, between Destiny and Resurrection of the Daleks. And we can get into that when we talk about Resurrection. But I think Davros is driven even more angry and insane because of
Mm.
his imprisonment in after Destiny of the Daleks. Um,
Which I guess gives
so
him a facelift, or I don't know.
Yeah, they made some choices. I will say I like the new series, the new Who
Hmm.
Davros, because it seemed to be kind of a nice merger of the two.
It's
And
definitely
again,
better.
another reinterpretation of the character. One thing, just sort of a nerd thing to note on Davros, I think I think I really like is that you can't really pin down how old he is because the
Mm.
war's been going on for 1,000 years. But if you think about how long he's been alive since then,
Hmm.
like, well, theoretically, he might have been one of the first people wounded in this war, right? Like, maybe he is 1,000 years old,
Yeah.
and his life support systems are just designed to keep him fresh. And the reason no one else has that technology is, obviously, like the technology went pretty south pretty quickly on Skaro
Yep.
once the war really got going. So, like, you couldn't just start building life support systems for everybody. So,
Huh.
I like that idea that Davros has probably been, driven mad, even more mad by just fighting this war for 1,000 years.
Yeah, there's definitely some chemical imbalance going on in that crazy cranium of his. But yeah, I miss this old mask, and even the new Who one doesn't live up to it for me. For me, this is chilling. I actually encountered it first in '79. Destiny of the Daleks was one of the very first Baker serials I fully remember watching and being
This one in Destiny.
Destiny, and then
Destiny, God.
Genesis was repeated. We talked a lot on the show about how little Doctor Who was repeated in the UK, so how little opportunity you get to see it. This should give you a measure of it. Genesis of the Daleks was repeated on terrestrial TV in the UK, twice in complete form and twice in edited form, and that's it.
Okay.
That's it since 1975. Like, and you
Wow.
guys with your PBS every night, and just I still can't get over it. Like, another screening of Genesis of Daleks was like a a
Dude,
coronation.
when
It
did you
was
get a VCR?
Tape was so precious. I was never allowed to use it for Doctor Who purposes, at least
Oh,
not
we
for.
were archivists. We
Yeah,
recorded once we got the VCR. I think those videotapes still might exist somewhere, even though they're probably long
nice,
faded. But
nice. Yeah, it
I
was
watched my
repeated.
tape of Genesis many times.
It was repeated in '82, which is when I saw it for the first time. So
Mm.
I saw it. I saw Destiny first, scared by Davros in that first. Now, wow, holy crap, he's even scarier. So yeah, it left a deep impression on my young brain.
Why don't we talk a little bit about Niter? Just because I
Yeah.
think in terms of the performances here, like it's hard to pick the best one, but I
Mm,
really was loving him this time. Like obviously he's the love to hate type character, but he is so dead on. Like you know what this guy's about from scene one. Just the ultimate evil lieutenant, yes man,
yeah.
but so like incredibly efficient at what he does, so good at what he does, and what he does is really despicable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
He's Himmler to Davros's
yes,
Hitler,
exactly. Played
and
by Peter Miles, by the
yes.
way, who also was in Doctor Who and the Silurians. And I love doing this podcast because I didn't make a lot of these connections of the same actors
Yeah.
when I was going through, and it's like, oh yes, he's kind of a dick scientist in that one, and I'd see all those same characteristics played up here to create a different character, and it's really really compelling.
It really is, and there's the wonderful scene where he has to open the safe for the doctor,
Right.
and the doctor kind of outwits him by being like, "Hang on a minute, this safe because they need to get." Again, I gave it short shrift. The recording of the his future history of the Daleks and all the times they lose is in a safe in Davros's office. The Doctor and Sarah, Harry, you have to go get it, and Nida. They capture Nida, basically force him to do it, and Nida's like, "I don't know the combination." The Doctor's like, "Bullshit! You are the same height as the safe." Davros is in a chair. His left hand works. You need right hand for this work. Open the damn safe.
Well, actually, I like the line that he says, "And Davros never goes anywhere without you, Niter." And I
Uh-huh.
like that they flip his character to his weakness, right? Like we know you. We're at episode 6 now, Niter. We know who you
Yep.
are and what you're about, and don't even try. Like, no, you got this, dude.
I was actually briefly
So
fooled where he gets on Garmin's side. He's like, yeah, I'm one of you. I'm part of the
that's
rebellion.
not bad.
It's a great scene, and I was
He
almost
didn't have to
fooled
be
by it
fooled.
this time.
He's
almost,
good. I
almost.
gotta say, he like Niter does some good acting there, and so
Mm.
Peter Miles acting as Niter, acting on the Resistance. Yeah, it works.
One
But
great thing about
yeah,
Genesis of the Daleks is that it is such a rich. It feels like a richly drawn world, and it feels like the characters have their own motivations, and you have factions, which is so
mm,
rare in science fiction that sort of tends to treat one race of people as just a unified body, and just like it's a pencil sketch of an
yeah,
actual world. This feels real because you have the smug politician
hmm
on both sides. Um, you have Garmin as sort of the nervous Nelly who's also leading trying to lead a resistance, and you sort of know in your heart of hearts that it's doomed from the start because he just doesn't have quite what it takes to stand up to
yeah,
Davros. Um, Ronson is great. Severin, like all of these names, I have a hard time usually keeping the names in a Doctor Who episode straight because they're not that well drawn as characters, and it's just
yeah,
sort of endless, sort of slightly unintentionally hilarious parade of names like Ravon, uh,
yeah,
Ravon, who turns out to be another sort of perfect Nazi kind of archetype, right? The young,
yeah.
more of the Hitler Youth kind of guy. Um,
Oh yeah, that's the general, right?
yeah,
The
General
young general.
Ravon.
Yeah, that's good. It's too bad we didn't see a little more of him. You almost feel like he's going to be a little more fleshed out
Mm,
with his sort of speech at the beginning. But even though, again, I don't think we're meant to judge too harshly a lot of the cruelty we see early on, because this is just it's all these people have ever known. It's just been nonstop war. So it's
mm,
interesting that character. I think the last we see of him is just after the Doctor has made his appeal to the civilian authorities, and he kind of congratulates him. He kind of goes to the doctor, "That was a great speech."
Mm.
Like, and it is a great speech. One, it's like I got to say, all the speeches here are great, and most of them are Tom Baker or Davros. But they're all really good. And one of the things I love what you said about the factions and all of it. One thing it's too bad. I mean, there's already so much going on, but like, it's too bad we don't get a little more of that Khaled civilian authority.
Mm.
Like it's interesting that they take the Doctor seriously at all, which is kind of interesting. And we could talk a little. I have a theory on that we could talk about a little later when we go over our regular things.
Yes, apparently
Um,
Terrence Dicks covered a lot of that in the novelization. It's like, the Doctor actually goes through many steps
yeah,
to get to the leaders, so it's like it's a bit more believable that he can just walk into the room with the politicians on both sides and
yeah.
start
But I
persuading them.
feel like it's one of these times where Doctor Who has really leveraged its mythos, and like
Mm.
the Doctor talking about the Daleks as this with this future knowledge to these people who don't know about it, and not just that they're coming and they're a threat, but they're you, and you're going to create you like inadvertent, like as the civilian leaders here, they're
Mm.
going to emerge from you and your race
Yeah.
to be pure evil. Like it's almost like I want to get into that deliberation, like I want to be on in the room there when they're kind of around, like, holy crap, like, could he be right?
Yeah.
Like, and just like,
Well, it
you
sort of
know,
seems like they've accepted that on a certain
hmm.
level. They're like, yeah, we live in a world of chemical warfare. The chemicals are already infecting our system in a few generations. By the way, how are they going to have future generations given that they are all men? What the hell? Anyway, it's 1975. Come on,
Well,
people. No
at
excuse.
least the Thals have some of the ladies
Yes, the
doing
Thals
stuff for them.
have
There's at
a
least one.
lady rebel leader. Um,
Yeah.
and but yeah, we needed more than that. And yeah, it's I like the idea that they're sort of boiled frogs already, to use that analogy of put a
Yeah.
frog in boiling water. Incorrect scientifically, but whatever. Great analogy. Like they're already boiled frogs to the point of like accepting that, oh yeah, this is our final form. We've screwed ourselves up with chemicals. We're going to look like that in another 100 years or whatever.
Yeah. It's
So
like there's
like
not
that
more.
debate is over. It's kind of like
Yeah.
climate change.
I,
The climate's just going to change.
I guess you have to sort of accept that maybe there was a time when they were like, we got to stop this or reverse it, and
Mm,
then they tried everything and it just wasn't going to happen. So
yeah,
maybe this is just post that, and there's just nothing we can do, because they take everything Davros says at his word, right?
yeah,
Davros is apparently the smartest. He thinks there's no life on other planets, all these incorrect things. So maybe he's probably incorrect about that, but he probably just said, nah,
yeah. Well,
we can't
Davros,
stop it because I actually kind of like these mutants, so I'm just going to make that the conventional wisdom. Actually, I like that headcanon that he basically, maybe it is reversible, but Davros was like just too influential, and
yeah.
they didn't stop to question it.
They didn't, or yeah, or maybe it just sort of like took time to get over that part. And a lot of think pieces in the Khaled press later, they emerge with like, oh yeah, I guess we're just going to look like monsters in the future. Okay, cool. Um, but mess with their DNA, you have gone too far, sir. Take out their consciences, take out everything that makes us, who we are. It's we're war people, sir, but by God, do not take away our conscience. Let us
Yeah, it's
fight
interesting.
conscience-driven wars.
Like, it kind of, I don't know if this was a conscious thing in the last couple of episodes, but once the Khaled dome is destroyed,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of wonder a little bit, like, why the elites aren't more dejected or depressed. Like, wouldn't you at that point be kind of wondering, like, what's the point? Like, wow, we
Mm.
just completely failed. And they sort of have the anger and the lashing out of sending the Daleks in, but then in the last two episodes, there's a lot of back and forth. Oh, should we keep, like, you'd almost think they'd get a little existential, like, what are we even doing here anymore?
Yeah,
Like, like, why develop the Daleks anymore?
yeah.
Like,
You don't
the
quite
Talls are gone, we're gone. Like,
you don't
uh,
quite get that sense of bunker mentality, right? Of like and
yeah,
just the grief of it all. Like this is a story with two genocides in it. This is
yeah,
rough, man. And this is like if you did a return to this via New Who kind of peek around the corners episode, you could certainly have a lot more of that. Like I'm picturing it as very Battlestar Galactica like,
yes,
just behind these scenes we're seeing, like there are walls full of photos of the dead, you know, and just little
yeah. Oh, that'd
messages
be
to each
great.
one. And people are grieving here and there. There are flowers. They're like people are like committing suicide as they do in Battlestar Galactica. Their numbers are dwindling. It's like, what is even the point? We've got nowhere to live anymore. You get really a sense of the grim and darkness. Having said that, it is still so grim.
Yes.
For 1975, this is super grimdark, and I'm almost glad of those giant clams because they're comic relief in the middle of the
almost
grimdark.
glad.
Yeah.
I can't quite get there either, though. I mean, the clams are. I mean, they're silly. I mean, one clam was bad enough, but to have them bring them back when they come back and there's a bunch and
Yeah.
they're kind of like Liz Sladen's like screaming about these things that aren't even moving that you could pretty easily just
bunch
I'm
of
just gonna
clams,
go
bunch of
this way.
clams. By the way, this was the first ever story I ever saw with Sarah Jane in it, and but Sarah Jane's reputation had preceded her because my mother would constantly tell me that Sarah Jane, she could scream.
Yeah.
That was her thing, her constant joke. She was a screamer, that Sarah Jane. And like, this is the first example that I saw of
Yeah.
it. And you got to say she's right. She's
A lot of screaming.
Yeah, primo Doctor Who screaming. Liz Sladen was the best. Don't even try, Bonnie Langford. Don't even. I know you got a voice on you, but like Sarah Jane will always be the greatest screamer.
She screams appropriately, and she screams a little bit too much here and there on in this particular one. So I think this is pretty. Obviously, it's pretty good for the time in terms of showing how Sarah's capable. So she's thrown into prison. The prison brigade with the Thals, or the Mutos. The Mutos and her are hauling the radioactive material onto the Thal rocket. She comes up with the escape plan, which isn't that great. It's not super thought through, but it's also like she comes up with it and motivates everyone.
Yeah,
so
she has
that's
a
awesome.
point. It's better than dying. Yeah, I think that's what tripped me up in the TLDW. I was so invested in Sarah Jane's story and in Liz Sladen's acting that like I had to spend a whole minute talking about that really not very important subplot. But speaking of Sarah Jane, there is one point that they did for costume continuity, leading into the next story, which was another Cyberman story, which had already been filmed, in which she's wearing these like combat pants and like a brown top. They look very, very 70s. And the Doctor, so to get over that costume continuity, it's weird that they don't care about costume continuity, like the Iron Cross disappearing, whatever stuff like that. But the next episode we've got to explain why they're wearing those clothes. So the Doctor just finds these like disco combat pants in a locker, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like
and
a
she's
studio.
just randomly wearing it.
She just randomly starts wearing it, and he grins at her. And he's like holding this costume. He's holding what looks like several grams of white powder in long, thin bags. And he's grinning at her. He's handing her what looks like a Studio 54 ready outfit. I mean, despite being a timeless classic, this is very 1975.
Yeah, it's not. It's a weird choice to sort of fixate on that. I'm kind of glad they did. I mean, at least they cared about some continuity. So it sort of indicates to me, okay, yeah, someone is paying attention. But man, we're going to party later, Sarah. Get these cars.
The white powder, by the way, turns out to be the explosives, which takes us back to Attack of the Cybermen last week.
Wake up in the TARDIS with a traffic cone, and all that. That's happening. But you're going to want your military fatigues.
Yeah. You wake up in the TARDIS with a robot dog and you have no idea how you got it. You must have been to the 50th century. Yeah, and there's another weird clothing continuity moment at the end where the Doctor retrieves his coat, which...
Yeah, I didn't realize it was at the beginning. Like, I guess I missed the first change.
Yeah.
Which I guess it's an external coat. So I thought he just switched coats, but I guess he had a coat over his shorter brown coat. This sort of a more brown coat, and then there's more of a darker grayish brown coat.
Doctor Who is really a very British show in that sense. It's like there are people wear a lot of coats over their coats.
Yeah. You got to be ready for that bad weather
exactly
anytime.
He retrieves it from an area that should have blown up. Like that's where the clothes were left, unless they were transported along with the stuff. And again, like I want to preface all of the mistakes and problems of plot holes of Genesis of the Daleks by saying great story, classic story, no notes. But there is also, sort of this weird thing with the time ring.
Right.
Which, by the way, Like, so the Time Lord hands them the time. It's not a time ring; it's a time bracelet. First of all, secondly, what
This is
is
a
the
ring on the bracelet. I don't know.
like? How cheap can you be? Why not give Sarah and Harry their own, and then you could just wear them? I mean, I guess they would have then been captured too, and they had to retrieve them too, and you don't want
Yeah,
to.
they just it's 3 times the problem.
Then it becomes a 10-part episode. Well, scavenger hunting back and forth across the wasteland super quickly on the Wasteland Express between the domes, retrieving the time rings. But yeah, like second, it's just kind of such a weird thing. Never really happens in Doctor Who again, unless you count Captain Jack's, wrist-mounted
Oh, the
time,
vortex
the
manipulator.
vortex manipulator. Yeah,
Yeah.
which has a little time ring-esque to it. But yeah, just kind of weird that they all have to hold on to it at the end and they start spinning around, and it's a bizarre effect. And
Yeah, it's an okay choice. I mean, obviously, I think the main thing it works for, I feel like Terry Nation worked backwards from an issue
mm,
in the last part where why don't they just leave once they think they've done what they need to do? And it's like, oh, well, we can't do that. And then the doctor still needs to witness the turning of the table. So how do we fix that problem? So it's like, oh, the time ring, right? Because it's
yeah,
such a contrived moment when the thing just falls in the hallway when they're struggling
it
with
does.
Snyder.
And yeah,
And
which again brings me back to dream logic, because literally most of my dreams are about losing things. And it's like I
or seems,
totally
yeah.
resonated with. Oh shit! I left my luggage over here. I'm always dashing around in dreams to retrieve stuff. So that totally worked. But there's also the moment where it's like, "Where's the time ring? Where's the time ring? Oh, it's here, Doctor. Oh, like it's a little bit of drama. But again, great story. No notes. Um,
Yeah. Well, I like how they kind of lose it at the beginning, and Harry's the sensible one, where doctor's like, "You can't have that," and then it's like, you might want to not make a big deal out of it
yeah.
because once we make a big deal out of it, they're gonna think it's a big deal, and it's kind of a big deal. So
Oh,
just chill."
that old thing, that bracelet.
Uh,
Take it. I've got hundreds of those trinkets. Um, Yeah, it is interesting, and you sort of mentioned this, that this is a story where the Doctor loses,
mm,
um, and not only that, but it's a story where the Doctor has to basically go in and retrieve the mistakes he's made in the forms of the tape. By the way,
yes.
how perfect that it's on tape,
Yeah.
which could have seemed very 70s if you hadn't already introduced this idea that they're using mismatched technology. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
so he has to clean up his own mess. He has to rediscover the time ring that Time Lords have introduced, and the tape that he introduced into the situation, and then just kind of try and stay back and observe history as much as possible.
Yeah, I think some of the better fan theories that have come out of this episode are chronicled in the discontinuity guide, and
Hmm.
I like the idea that even though the tape is destroyed, that Davros was there and listening with rapt attention the entire
Mm,
time the Doctor was talking, and so once Davros is revived later, like a little bit of that knowledge so is retained, and he kind of tries to recreate certain things or avoid certain things. So like the idea that he would later sort of become a Dalek emperor, and sort of
mm,
trying to kind of in sort of like, okay, so the doctor seemed, the emperor becomes this grand thing. Maybe I can sort of try to figure out my place in that or
yeah.
use that to my advantage. But I mean, the big theory that comes out of this is that the big difference that the doctor makes isn't necessarily the bunker getting nuked and like setting them back 1,000 years because they're entombed and the incubator room is
Mm,
destroyed.
hmm.
It's that Davros gets more paranoid because of what the doctor has done, and therefore he
Mm,
survives. Because previous to this story, he was never mentioned. He was never
yes.
part of the Daleks' history, and
Ah.
this is the thing that's altered is that now that Davros survives, he becomes this force in their development later, and therefore they become less of a threat because they're squabbling and in factions, and Davros is kind of inserting himself into places because he wants his own power, which was a good theory up until New Who, right? Because
Mm,
then it's like, okay, hold on, but the Daleks do actually become this massive, existential threat to the universe, and um but I still like it. I still like that idea that the X Factor is Davros himself, who after Genesis, there isn't a single classic series adventure that doesn't with the Daleks that doesn't feature him.
yeah. Yeah, I love that idea that the Doctor himself has basically given him a future of battling Davros, given himself a future of that. Wow, yeah, I love it. Love that
Yeah.
change.
It's a
Yeah.
great it's a great dramatically. What's good is that um the Davros as a leader of the Daleks. I mean, Terry Nation would famously talk about how he didn't like having long conversations with Daleks, and
Hmm.
he felt they kind of needed a leader, and that did help. And there are some good Davros stories and then some weaker Davros stories, but it's like having that person, having him now feature more and more is great. By the way, it's like interesting that they didn't make it more explicit that he does survive, because
Yeah.
the way it's shot, you figure like it looks like, oh, I guess they just killed him, but they do bring him back, and they intended to, I think, because they talked to, I think there's a scene that's not quite like that. The scene that they ended up filming isn't quite the scene they had scripted, where it was a little more explicit, not explicit, but like the possibility of him surviving was a little more clear.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, it was
so
unclear enough that Terrence Sticks killed him off in the novelization.
uh, yeah,
Oops.
interesting. So I mean, maybe they're fooling themselves. It's like more of a retcon that they're saying, oh yeah, we had to bring him back, because when they bring him back in Destiny,
Mm.
there's no explanation.
Well, looking at it through a modern lens, we definitely read this as Davros is going to survive, even if you knew nothing else about Doctor Who,
Yeah,
because we don't actually see him dying. We don't see him doing the negative film effect of the extermination, right?
right.
I think you see his hand or something, or
Yeah.
like, but the camera is panning away. Now that to me reads just like the quote unquote death of Kingpin at the end of Hawkeye. Oops, sorry, spoiler alert. Uh, where it's just like the camera pans away. He's not really dead. Like that's just what we know with villains. If you don't see them die, expect them to
No,
return.
yeah, absolutely. I'm just I kind of want to see. It's honestly, come to think of it, it's less about how the scene is shot and sort of
Mm.
like what happens after. And I kind of want to see a mini-sode that explains sort of the Dalek incompetence of like disposing of the body
Yeah,
or whatever. Because it's like, okay, well, if he didn't die, like he was shot, maybe his chair kept him alive, or there was a force field, whatever it is. But he's there.
yeah,
Like I mean, like the body, what the seemingly dead body is there. The Daleks would want to dispose of it. How does he then? I mean, he doesn't go anywhere because he ends up just sort of buried under the bunker,
yeah.
and he's retrieved later in Destiny of the Daleks. I mean, presumably, I mean, maybe he does have something happens to him when he gets put back there. I mean, you could write that too, but I'd love to sort of see that fleshed out. I think there's an opportunity there to flesh out what's going on.
One indelible image from Destiny of the Daleks, where the eye on his head flicks on, the the light on his head flicks on, and I think that was a cliffhanger in Destiny of the Daleks, but I've never been able to get it out of my memory. But yeah, speaking of Davros, the great technologist, and technology that has kind of dated, like yes, again, you say development technology is all over the place because Thousand Year War, but the scientists are all super impressed when Davros voice controls the Dalek at the start, and and so were we at the time. But now we look at it, and he's like, go forward, turn left, do this, do that, and we're like, Siri, you've just invented Siri, basically.
Yeah, and it's also like, do you need Siri? It's a being, right? Like, I mean, like, why is voice control so great? Like, it's just hearing you and operating the controls, right? Remember, this isn't a robot, Davros. Like, this is a person in there. I mean, it's a
Yeah,
thing, but it's like maybe it just understands English and understands how to do the controls. Isn't that what has been perfected? Which isn't really perfected anything, is it?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it definitely that is the one thing about Genesis that has perhaps aged more than anything else, is that sense of like we're just no longer impressed by
yeah.
voice controlled anything. But yeah, you're also right. It just the Daleks are supposed to be autonomous, like even right there at the start, right?
Well,
Kind
I
of the
mean, he
idea.
does talk about like, and it's a little unclear. Like sometimes that, like he says early on, they're only partially in control or something, and
Mm,
so they're programmed. So the line between being and machine has always been a little bit, I think, deliberately unclear with the Daleks. How much are they sort of robotic and emotionless, and how much are they like real, like just beings within a car,
mm.
essentially? Um,
I,
yeah, I
I
think
I definitely got Tesla 3 vibes from Travel Machine Mark 3. Like that's how Daleks would emerge in our world.
Where's the Dalek Model Y, man? I guess that's the one. Those are probably the Revolution Daleks. But really, like, this is more Davros episode than Dalek episode,
For
and
sure.
we can't talk enough about the dialogue between the Doctor and Davros, and
Yes.
like the episodes 5 and 6 in particular, like the 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 bit where um when they're just shouting at each other, like right before he goes into the confession, and the
Mm.
Davros has now this appreciation and he believes who the Doctor is, and forces him to, confess all the Dalek defeats. But then, like, when the Doctor stands up to him and just they're both yelling like, "You'll tell me," and "No, I will not." Like,
Mm.
you just like it's almost like they have history instantly.
Yes.
Like it's like wow. Like, I mean, you very rarely get like this great meeting of equals,
Yeah.
with the Doctor and the villain, and
Almost
it's
more
just done
so,
perfectly.
as you said earlier, than with the Master. Like the Doctor, we know from from their history, love a good megalomaniac.
Mm.
They really do. And who's better than Davros at this? He's fascinated by them. He's fascinated by the mindset, which is why he introduces this thought experiment about releasing the virus. But I got to
Well,
say, while we're on the subject, and then I will drop the subject entirely of Davros and technology. The randomizer has previously brought us to stories where I have said, if you just program that robot with the 3 laws of robotics about, Isaac Asimov's famous rule of like how not to harm human beings, like just a little bit of programming here. I accept that Davros, not being a totally solipsistic, would not want the Daleks to not harm anyone. Obviously, they're war machines, like whatever. But program them with the 3 laws of not killing their own creator, not killing Davros.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Would
Kind
have
of forgot.
been a smart move there. And I love the idea that the Daleks like, what is pity? I do not understand. This word is not programmed. Like, well,
Yeah.
okay, I guess
Whoops.
oops, just desserts. But still, you could have built in a fail safe of like, by the way, deep in your programming, this he's doing it to people. He has, replaced the heart of one of the scientists, right?
Yeah.
In order to sort of bring him under his control. Like, I think that was a bit of an oversight there, Davros. Sorry.
Oh, totally. But I kind of almost
Otherwise,
believe
10 out
it.
of 10, great plot, no notes.
Yeah, he says in, I think, episode 2, when he's doing the first experiment, he's so pleased that the Dalek showed an instinct to kill,
Hmm.
and all on its own. Like, it gives it total autonomous control. And I think that sort of sets up that ending a little bit, where he's like, "Oh, this, he sees them as his children, and they're
Yeah.
basically like, okay, like, I'm going to um, trust that my guidance here has turned them into the thing that will not just do all the things I want, but also have a built-in reverence for me." And boy, does that not happen.
Yeah. They really could have built in, the song Cats in the Cradle here. Like, Davros
Oh yeah,
realizes my boy has grown up just like me.
the dolls in the cradle.
Dolls in the cradle and the silver spoon.
Nice. So, speaking of speeches and dialogue, though, so we got to talk about the "Do I have the right" moment. We got to really like
I
unpack
was going to
this
say that.
because
Yeah, we've gone through like nearly an hour and a half of talking about Genesis of the Daleks without mentioning the words "Have I the right?"
yes, and first of all, a little interesting note, which is that it was originally the season 5. Oh, sorry, episode 5 cliffhanger,
Yeah,
which ended up being the Doctor getting attacked by the Dalek mutant, which is a fine cliffhanger. But man, I really wish they had contorted it more in terms of runtime and figured out how to get that "Do I have the right?" Because that would have been the ultimate cliffhanger in all of Doctor Who.
it is
Um,
such an indelible image. The Doctor standing there with 2 wires in his hand, and we've set it up so that all he has to do is spark those wires together. And I remember as a kid, like you're practically on the couch jumping and screaming at the Doctor to touch the 2 wires together, end
yeah.
these evil, scary things.
And Sarah's there to
Yeah,
be that voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
And she does that so well, does this lady in that scene.
Yeah.
And it just, the Doctor staring at that. Yeah, to make that a cliffhanger would have been so unique, so original, as to redefine what cliffhangers were. Um,
Yeah.
and you would have no doubt there's often debate in the history of Doctor Who, what is the best cliffhanger. You would have no doubt that this would be it,
Yeah.
given it's such a classic, chilling moral moment. But yeah, I guess they just, at the time, it wouldn't have seemed punchy enough, right?
Well, it's just that like it would be the one cliffhanger you really don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
Like you really don't. Like it would be like holy cow. Like I mean, because a Dalek on the neck is one thing. It's like okay, he'll get rid of that somehow. We know, but the like is he going to destroy them or isn't he? Like how are they going to write that? Like you'd just be on the edge of your seat.
Yeah, and imagine doing
Yeah.
that these days. The discourse, the hashtag discourse that would follow all over Twitter for weeks after this, after a choice like that of like just making the moral dilemma the cliffhanger. I love it.
Yeah, so it's great that the Doctor has this moment. The dialogue is perfect. I love that Sarah's there, the one to kind of like try to convince him to finish the mission for the Time Lords. I also like, just as sort of a comedic aside, it's a perfect choice to have Ian Marter as Harry just kind of sit back, but you kind of wonder how Harry's like, wait, hold on, okay, like it's almost like seeing a couple fight in front of you, and you're kind of the third wheel, and you're like, I'm just gonna let you guys, I'll be over. I'll be right back at you.
Yeah,
Harry,
Harry. Yeah, I don't know how good he comes out of this whole story. I mean, I feel like his finest moment is right at the start with the landmine.
Right. Yeah, that was good.
And the jokes that come
That's
out of
his
that.
thing.
He's like, yeah, that's his one moment of really being heroic. Otherwise, he's just sort of like a not very good Watson to the Doctor's Sherlock.
Yeah, he lets the Doctor be the Doctor, and when he's playing up some of the very few comedic moments, it makes it better. So the comedic, like there's not a lot of comedy in this one, but it is like it's good. Like it's really funny stuff. You see with Tom Baker's bit where he's asking for tea in the Khaled bunker,
yeah,
and he does the no tea Harry.
Yeah, no tea
bit,
Harry, which was an ad lib, which was not in the
Yeah.
script. It was Baker starting to flesh out his more comedic Doctor.
Yeah, and he's so young in here. I mean, we just came from State of Decay. That's the last Baker episode we did, and it's
where he
interesting
was
that
in a state of decay, and now here he is, fresh-faced-ish.
fresh-faced, youthful, like he's still kind of figuring out his Doctor a bit, and I think this episode is obviously very definitive for Baker in his era, and I think probably for his performance.
Yes. He definitely
that balance.
He peaked early, and kind of returned to that peak throughout his run. But also the show I feel like it peaked stylistically at this point. Like this is the quintessential Baker outfit for the Doctor,
Right.
and indeed you got to say the quintessential outfit for the Doctor. Full stop. Certainly before the new series, like if you saw the Doctor represented in anything like The Simpsons, like Freaks and Geeks, it's the Tom Baker Doctor, and specifically this Genesis of the Daleks costume with the hat.
Yeah, and also the choice to have essentially his scarf almost like a choker around his neck. I mean, it's a little tight, I got to say, and I think in subsequent seasons they've loosened it up. But like it's just like really like it's like one good tug, Doctor, and I think you're Peter Davison, like, so you should probably loosen that a bit.
I love it. Yeah, it's the outfits are iconic all round. It's very 70s, but it's also, other than Sarah's 70s disco costume found in a locker, it's really a style, like the way that the Thals look, with the green outfits and the yellow, that just feels so super 60s, 70s science fiction-y, and it just, the style all round of everything in this, I love it. Once again, a template that the rest of the series could have followed.
Yeah, interesting note on some of the weaponry, like the guns. I guess I think it's one of the soldiers. I don't forget if it's Khaled or Athal, but he actually uses a gun from Galaxy
4. Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's so odd, so
trivia.
Random. Like it's
kind of like
and that's how far. That's how close we are in time to, like early Hartnell Who, right?
Yeah.
Within 10 years,
closer to Hartnell than anything else, for sure.
Also, interesting chronological note about proximity in time. The 40th anniversary of Hitler's death in his bunker was a few weeks after Genesis of the Daleks screened.
Oh, wow.
It was only 40 years prior. So to a lot of the audience, this would have still felt like, Hitler was real. Like, it was a commentary on that thing that was within living memory.
It's not an anniversary many celebrate, but if you do, a good viewing of Genesis of the Daleks is probably a good way to do it.
Honestly, I think we should celebrate the anniversary of Hitler, dead in a ditch,
Sure.
on fire,
Oh,
as
yeah.
Eddie Izzard puts it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Maybe
let's.
people do. I recommend we recommend Genesis of the Daleks. It's
Yeah,
you need some viewing in there.
if you need some
Um,
megalomaniacal bunker viewing to celebrate it, watch Downfall and then watch this.
a couple other notable firsts and lasts in this serial. So this is the first time the Dalek weaponry actually produces a beam effect.
Hmm.
Up until this point, it was always just the negative. They do the positive negative to show the effect of it. They still use that here, but this is the first time they actually use a beam, which I got to think was probably pretty awesome for the viewers at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, the exterminations were great. It still sends a chill seeing that sort of negative film effect. Works just as well in color as it did in black and white. And we see also chronologically the first ever extermination. Right? Is it Ronson?
Right. Yeah, I guess I mean, yeah, is that the first person to kill? I think you're right.
Hmm.
It is Ronson with yeah, it's because he has another great speech by Davros. He's all like, well, we're gonna strike back with an attack. So he says something like so merciless,
Hmm.
and he's just delighting, like you could almost see blood coming down
Yeah.
his teeth or something because it's like he's just so full on anger and killing. And yeah, Ronson's the first one that gets killed, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's
again.
it's perfect because of course, Davros has to draw attention away from his own treachery, so he identifies Ronson as the traitor,
Yeah.
and Ronson is the guy who needs to be getting rid of because he's the one who's been working with the Doctor. And it's kind of a surprise because at that point in the story, you're expecting Ronson to play more of a role. He
Yeah.
might in other lesser Who stories. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
he's dead. He's out.
No, this might be the everybody dies episode. Not
Mm.
quite everybody, but I mean, like basically all the Colleds die.
Literally
That we
piles of
see.
bodies.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
There's a lot of grimness.
quite spectacularly grim.
So it's the first freeze frame cliffhanger,
Yeah.
and that's right when Sarah falls from the scaffolding around the rocket, and it sort of freezes with her midair. Um, I kind of I got to be honest with you, I kind of hate it. I kind of hate freeze frame
Yeah.
cliffhangers. I think I can't honestly remember we've definitely been to an episode where they did a freeze frame, and I forget which one it was.
I
But
think it
every
was
time I
the
see it, it's pretty bad.
same. I think it was the same director,
Okay.
and I think it was also later in Baker's
Yeah, I
run,
think it was a
maybe.
Baker one. We've done plenty of Bakers, but yeah, I think it's just not good.
It
It's
hasn't
also
aged well.
yeah, the resolution of that cliffhanger too is also not so great. It's one of those cliffhanger not that ends up being nothing. So she
Mm.
kind of falls just a little bit to another scaffolding.
Yeah.
There's no other sort of X factor that helps there. We're just like, come on, you could
Did
have done
you
better.
you know they got a stunt person in to do that fall, but then they found that Liz Sladen had already been doing falls further than the stunt person was going to do. So just another reason to love Liz Sladen. The height thing, they do the scaffolding thing very well. Like one thing Genesis Daleks does really, really well is like with a lot of the tight end shots, it makes you realize makes you forget like how minimal the set is, right?
Yeah,
How cheap the set is because we're almost never in wide angle. We're in mid or we're up close. And I was like, how are they going to do this rocket thing? Is it going to be some sort of cheesy CSO rocket that they're climbing up? And they're clearly not there. But no, the scaffolding actually worked.
yeah. Actually,
It's
it's one of the
almost like a
better ones.
stage play effect.
Yeah. The scaffolding works, even the
Mm.
quick shots of the rocket when she's looking up at it,
Mm.
were fine. Like, there was nothing really to complain about there. Um, I would complain about her plan in that, like, well, the guys down in the ground have guns,
Mm.
and they use them. So, without any kind of, like, either stealthy way of doing this or a shielding, I think this is not gonna go so well, and of course, it doesn't go so well. That said, I like the plan overall, and it would have been really nice, again, totally beyond the budget at the time. But again, if you're remaking the canon of Classic Who, seeing the outside of the dome and seeing her like climb out, even if her attempt fails, would have been really cool.
Mm.
So note to anyone doing more the episode you're talking about, which
Yeah.
is the let's go back into this. I would love to see some more Some more dome action. Dome it up.
More dome action. Let's get some bumper stickers made with that on it. But still, Sarah Jane, great escape plan. No notes. Also, there is an unintentionally hilarious, I should also mention, moment at the top of the rocket where it's like, you must leap across this great chasm of 1 foot.
Yeah.
And she has to do it twice because the guard has to bring her back, right? And it's both times it's played as if it's this enormous jump.
Yeah, Jack was when we were watching, he was really harsh on Sarah because he was like, he was looking at that. It's like, I can walk over that, and she does at some point. It was like, just walk over it, and it kind of was really hard. As oh, Sarah sucks, and it's like, Jack, that's easy to look at with the lens of 2022.
That's something in 1975. But it's still, I think that's a testament to turning lemonade into lemons there, to how good the story had done so far in not pointing out its unreality. If they just expanded that gap by a few feet, it might have worked a lot better. But again, classic story, no notes.
So, Chris, we gotta talk about a few questions.
Yes.
And one of them is, why did the randomizer take us here in the first place? What do you think? What's the through line?
Well, we went from crap Cybermen, or what I consider to be crap Cybermen, to perfect Daleks. Like, it's such a whiplash to go from Attack of the Cybermen to Genesis of the Daleks. And I think so. I applaud the randomizer for just the whiplash effect that brought up. Also, it's Baker to Baker. We know the randomizer loves Bakers and it loves Capaldi's. So
Baker to Baker.
Baker to Baker.
I like that.
It likes doing 2 Bakers and then 2 Capaldi's, right? It loves Time Lords. We already know that. We've had a lot of Time Lord episodes like Hellbent, and Deadly Assassin, of course, and Terror, even like Terror of the Autons. Randomizer loves Time Lords just jumping out of nowhere, and it also. So I've said quite a bit in previous weeks that I love episodes where, one way to make a Doctor Who episode great for me is if the Doctor returns to the TARDIS mid-story, realizes that he uses the TARDIS as a resource. And the randomizer, I think, heard me say that and was like, oh, you like stories with the TARDIS in, do you? Well, here's Genesis of the Daleks. We are so far away from the TARDIS, it's unreal.
It's the only story, I believe, in the classic series that doesn't feature the TARDIS at all.
Yeah. And you know what? In the new series also didn't feature the TARDIS at all? Where we've been? Midnights.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
Which way we've been there. Yeah, that could be the through line. Now, that was a little while ago. That was I don't know how many episodes.
It was, but it definitely themes. We can see themes that are coming up in the randomizer's choices.
My straightforward explanation for this is that this is actually our first proper Dalek episode. So I think it's actually just wants us to take them in chronological order.
Wouldn't that be great? I mean,
start with this one, and I don't know what the next one would be. Might be
the chances against that happening are 1,000,000 to 1, but it could still happen.
It'd be amazing, though. I think what is I'll have to look it up. What the next one is? It's probably something like Power of the Daleks or something. So
yeah, it would be. Yeah. So they went. I mean, I'm confused as to Dalek chronology. So they did have other ones that were pre the Daleks.
Yeah, I mean, it depends where you think the Daleks is, right? Like, it could be the Daleks, or whatever. I think whatever Dalek story we arrive at, I think I'll figure out a way to make it early as the next one in the chronology, because you can contort whatever you want. But it could be the Daleks, it could be the Power of the Daleks. There's bits of stories that are earlier, because they're time travelers. So there's like Evil of the Daleks is in like the Victorian era. So I think there's ways to do it.
Right.
I'm just going with that.
All right, that works. And yes, oh, great and glorious randomizer. Please give us Dalek stories in order. Now you have begun. Watch it completely ignore me.
So, Chris, what if the evil plot had succeeded here?
Yeah, that's our next regular segment. And gotta say, whose is the evil plot?
Yeah.
First of all, is it the Time Lords or is it the Daleks?
Ooh,
the Time Lords are
moral dilemma
interfering here for as far as we know the first time in history, and they punish the Doctor for interfering,
which lets me do a quick quick digression, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. Maybe not
Sure.
so quick, but I got to do it just because it's like this came up because Jack brought up, well, why if this is if the Time Lords are intent on destroying the Daleks at their creation,
Mm.
why just send the Doctor? Why not come in force?
Mm-hmm.
Why not, essentially come back and crush them? And I thought about that, and it's like, well, it's beyond it just not being their style. I think that this is sort of how time works in some ways. Like, if you're going to go change the history, if you're going to alter the timeline, there's only ways. You can only do it in a subtle way for
Mm.
it to succeed. Because otherwise, if you do a major incursion in the past, like we've seen, those time monsters come out that start eating time. Basically, time gets wounded if you hurt it too much, and then it sterilizes the wound, and that creates massive waves that are worse than the thing you're trying to do.
Mm.
So, but if you send one person back, if you send just the Doctor and you do it essentially on the down low and try to
Mm-hmm.
change time in a more subtle way, then it's almost like time doesn't notice. Like the
Yeah.
time stream is like, okay, maybe that always happened. Sure, we'll go with it. Like, so that's kind of like, I think that's my headcanon here on
I
changing
love it.
time.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah. The Doctor is definitely an agent of time who's shown that he can get away with changing time in little ways. But even so, even if it's just one person, like wiping out the Daleks would have massive implications on the entire history of the
yeah,
universe. So it's just bizarre that the Time Lords thought they'd get away with this, and this is why it wouldn't just be fan service to return here, right?
yeah.
To return to this episode, provide more context. We desperately need that. So if it had
So,
one, then yeah, I don't know what happens. No Daleks, a lot more people live, but they're all like less.
well, jerks to each other.
They're all jerks to each other. Maybe there are more wars than there would have
Yeah.
otherwise been.
What if there's actually more loss of life
Yeah,
because of that, and then there's kind of a review, a post mortem, if you
right.
will, of like, okay, hold on, we need to do something else, or some kind of Thanos type emerges out of that to kind of correct the problem in
Yeah, yeah.
even worse ways.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
just the moral of the story is don't try to change time, kids, even if it's a, let's wipe out the Daleks. It's very much the Doctor Who equivalent of a question that is often debated, which would later become a Doctor Who episode, right? Let's kill Hitler. Um,
Right. Yeah.
would you go? But this episode has serious "would you kill baby Hitler" vibes,
Right.
because it's basically the moral dilemma at the end. Might have been improved if we'd seen a Dalek creature that looked a little more babyish. Like, oh, it's
Mhm.
cute. It has this little eye. But we don't see that. We do see it a few times in Classic Who, and you see it in Five Doctors, the actual Dalek monster. Anyway, I'm going off on
Yeah.
another tangent.
Well, no, but it's a good tangent because I like zeroing in on the "Let's kill Hitler." Do you kill,
Mm,
like, the back to the question, the moral dilemma of the episode, which I think really informs a lot of New Who takes on the Daleks, like, whether it's Dalek or Parting of the Ways or Into the Dalek, like this a whole idea of the Doctor and the Daleks constantly trying to kill each other, and also the Doctor constantly wondering if he's becoming as bad as they are for getting so deep into this conflict. I feel like
right.
this is the template episode for that,
Yeah.
and it's kind of like really been retreading it ever since.
Yeah.
And it's good retreads. I mean, I don't mean that as a slam. All the episodes I just named, I really like.
We
But
should
it's
almost retread it more often.
yeah. I mean, it can't get tiresome, but it's also like that is the essence of their conflict, and you can breathe on it in different ways, have
Mm,
different outcomes, and also just bring freshness to it with new context. So again, you can do it too often, but this is it. This is the original sort of formula, and you can see why it is.
yeah.
So that's whose evil plot is it? I really like your take that it's actually the Time Lord's evil plot.
It is. Because the other evil plot kind of succeeds in terms of, well, Davros does unleash the Daleks. I guess you could say the evil plot succeeding would be him unleashing the Daleks and them still being nice to him.
Yeah.
But maybe you should have thought of that and taken them to a few ball games, Davros.
Well, maybe when there's a new tape made based on this episode that gets back to him, and he kind of just keep redoing this Genesis
He
again and
should have.
again.
That's what the Doctor should have just said when the Davros is torturing him. He's like, "How do the Daleks lose, Doctor?" He's like, "They lose because they don't have your guidance, Davros." I was like, "Why is that?" He's like, "Because you didn't spend enough quality time with them, and we took away their capacity for them to like you." And cut to scene of Davros and the Daleks out for a day's vacation. Just hitting the sites, getting ice creams together.
I love it.
Bonding time, throwing balls.
Hey, I have some popcorn. Popcorn.
You could really throw a baseball with a Dalek. You could pick it up in the plunger hand, right?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yes. Annihilate the baseball if it misses.
Yeah. I like to play that game. Another game I like to play is Where's Clara?
Yes, so we have sent the Clara Splinter through time in slightly more episodes than she was seen in Name of the Doctor, which is to say, we imagine that she's in all of them.
Who's to say we're wrong?
Who's to say we're wrong? Certainly not any other Doctor Who fan with their own headcanon. But it's a useful and convenient way to tie up loose plot points, and there are a fair few. First of all, I think she would have put that fabulous Studio 54 outfit in Sarah Jane's size in that locker, because she's aware Sarah Jane has to look great and kind of needs a change. After working as a prisoner for so long, she's a bit ripe. Needs some new clothes. So Clara's thinking about clothes. Very important part of Doctor Who.
Okay.
As we know from this episode. She's also, I think, introducing the Doctor to the right people to get him to talk to the Khalid leadership.
Yeah.
So immediately.
I'm with that one. I like that. Because it's like I see her as like she's first of all, she can't be a Thal because she's not blonde. So
well,
she's not
a Splinter could be blonde.
I guess, yeah. Come to think of it, would that work? Maybe.
How could you be a Thal though, and just sort of stand by and watch all that massacre happen?
Yeah, I can't find the thing to fill in over there. So I do like the idea that she's like the executive assistant to the president or whatever the leader is, and
it's like,
kind of like, you should listen to this dude with the scarf. I think he's gone to something, and the guy's like, really?
Yes, right. Mr. President, I've just put some room on your schedule with a Mr. John Smith. He's like, who is that? Oh, you agreed to talk to him weeks ago. He's got some ideas on the war. Just look at the outfit. If you don't like what he's saying, he's a tall drink of water.
Nice. So yeah, I'm going with that one. She's facilitating that conversation, which unfortunately goes disastrously wrong. But what are you going to do? Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was Genesis of the Daleks. But I think, do we even need to say whether we like this one or not? Whether it's a Dalek or an Ogron? I mean, come on.
It's clearly a Dalek. It's clearly a Dalek, and it's sort of
Dalek Emperor, man. This is what it is.
This is the first time I've seen it since watching Magician's Apprentice, Sorcerer's Familiar.
Me too.
Which is familiar, whatever the hell that combo is called. And it really does inform it, doesn't it? Like the mix of technologies, I'd forgotten about that aspect. The hand mines referencing the land mines. Literally the question of, do you kill child Davros? Returning to that weighty moral stuff.
Almost forgot about that. Does that answer definitively how old Davros is, by the way? Do they say, do you remember if they say in Which is Familiar, like how long the war's been going at that point?
I don't think they do, but perhaps it is a throwaway line. We should look that up.
Yeah.
Watch the randomizer take us there next. That would be spooky as hell.
That's almost not chronological though. But again, it's earlier. I don't know. I could twist it. I'll figure it out.
It does, but also the Doctor and Davros' relationship in that is super interesting. Like you said, it's sort of like clearly they're frenemies.
All right,
and I'm having his chair.
Guys, it's time to figure out where we're going from Genesis of the Daleks now. It's time to activate the randomizer. And go back somewhere, as everyone knows. But if you don't, The randomizer consists of two parts. The randomizer is the Pull to Open Codex, which is linked to in the show notes, and you can find every single episode of Doctor Who there, every single story, all 299 of them, soon to be 300
Very
in a couple of
exciting.
weeks. And the second part is the Executor.
That's right. The Executor is played by random.org, which produces true randomness by looking at atmospheric noise rather than the pseudo randomness of computer algorithms, which just guess at a random number because they are dumb like pre-Mark III Daleks. So Pete has the list. I have numbers 1 and 299 plugged into the random number generator for the very last time because it will soon be 1 and 300. I do not know what these numbers represent. Pete has that information.
Okay.
It's kind of a nice division of labor here.
Codex is wide open.
So
ready.
ready for a challenge, perhaps?
Ready
do you want to give it a challenge, or dare we not dream?
Yeah, I mean, I could think of something. I think we should go somewhere we should go to a doctor we haven't been before. That's an easy one.
Okay.
And there are at least 3. What is it? Eccleston and McCoy,
McGann,
and of course McGann, who is that's the Yahtzee
moment. And technically Whittaker. The randomizer's not taken us to a Whittaker yet.
True, that's true.
So yeah, I'm going to say let's stick with the Daleks. I feel we sort of may have equal chance of success here.
Okay.
In this. All right, so give me a countdown. I will hit the generate button.
You got it. It's 4, 3, 2, 1.
Spoilers.
125.
Oh, I think we're still in Old Who. Yeah, it's Terminus.
Ooh.
Okay.
Davison, right?
That is Davison. That's actually the serial that follows Mordred Undead, which we've been to.
Oh, that is another thing the randomizer likes to do, is bunch stuff up like that.
And Turlough is its favorite companion. This will be the 4th Turlough episode we've done.
All right. Well, we have reached our terminus, and it is the terminus of this episode, this extra long episode of Genesis of the Daleks. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Pete, is this a podcast?
It's a podcast, everyone. Hey, if you have a podcast app, and for whatever reason you haven't subscribed to us, please do. Please also tell your friends and other Doctor Who fans and random people on the internet. Go ahead. Ask them to subscribe as well. We're on all the good platforms, as we mentioned at the top. We're on Apple, Amazon Music, Spotify, Stitcher, Breaker, Google Podcasts, all the good places. And while you're there, please, again, leave us a review. They really do help the podcast reach more ears. So go ahead, pause the playback, leave a review, leave 1 emoji and 5 stars. We would be eternally grateful, and we'd love to read your review out on air. Follow us on social media. We are super active on TikTok at Pull2Open, all one word. We're also on Twitter and Instagram at Pull2Open63. We're sharing stuff there too, and it's super fun. Feel free to comment, engage, and just tell us how you're doing. And we'd love to nerd out with you.
100%. We always love nerding out with you. We'll give you a big shout out on the show, and we will see you here next time. Talk about Terminus and perhaps a little special episode before then.
All right. Talk to you soon, guys.